On the morning of January 24, 2006, a woman failed to arrive at work. Her name was Jennifer Kesse. Jennifer was 24 years old. She lived alone in a condominium in Orlando. When Jennifer didn't answer her phone, her family grew concerned. This was not normal for her. Jennifer was dependable. She kept regular routines. She stayed in close contact with her parents. By the end of the day, it was clear something was wrong. Jennifer had vanished. Her car was missing. Her phone was unreachable. Her home showed no obvious signs of disturbance. But what made this case different was what investigators would later find. Jennifer's car was recovered, and nearby a surveillance camera captured a person of interest. The image was clear. Too clear. And yet the person's face was completely obscured by the timing of each camera frame. For years, that footage has been described as one of the most frustrating pieces of evidence in modern true crime. A person was caught on camera, in broad daylight, and still, no identity. More than 18 years later, Jennifer Kesse has never been found, and the person seen near her car has never been identified. Jennifer Kesse was 24 years old in January of 2006. She was described by family and friends as responsible, organized, and independent. Jennifer worked in finance. She had recently been promoted and was considered reliable and driven. She lived alone in a condominium complex near downtown Orlando. Jennifer had purchased the condo herself. It was an important milestone for her. Those close to her said she took pride in maintaining her routine. She woke up early. She went to work on time. She stayed in regular contact with her parents. Jennifer spoke with her mother frequently, sometimes several times a day. If she was traveling or running late, she would call. This consistency is important, because when Jennifer stopped responding, it was immediately noticed. Jennifer had returned from a vacation shortly before she disappeared. She had been visiting her boyfriend in the Caribbean. By all accounts, the trip had been positive. There were no reports of conflict or distress. When Jennifer returned home, she resumed her normal schedule. There was nothing to suggest she was planning to leave or change her routine. Jennifer did not have a history of disappearing without explanation. She did not miss work. She did not ignore calls. Her life was structured, predictable, which is why her sudden absence stood out so clearly. On the morning of January 24th, Jennifer did not arrive at work. She did not call. She did not answer her phone. Her employer contacted her family. That call marked the moment her disappearance became undeniable. There were no signs that Jennifer had chosen to leave. No note, no packed bags, no indication she was in trouble before that morning. Everything known about Jennifer suggested stability, and that made what happened next all the more difficult to understand. The last confirmed time Jennifer Kesse was seen was the evening of January 23, 2006. That night, Jennifer spoke with her parents on the phone. The conversation was normal. There was no tension, no urgency. Nothing out of the ordinary. After that call, Jennifer prepared for the next workday. Investigators believe she went to bed expecting to follow her usual routine. Sometime the next morning, Jennifer left her condominium to go to work. She was expected to arrive at her office shortly after 8 o'clock. She never did. When Jennifer failed to arrive, her employer became concerned. Jennifer was known for punctuality. She did not miss work without notice. As the morning passed with no response to phone calls, her family was contacted. Jennifer's parents immediately sensed something was wrong. They tried calling her phone. There was no answer. They attempted to reach her repeatedly. Still nothing. Later that day, Jennifer's family traveled to her condominium. What they found was unsettling because of how ordinary it appeared. Jennifer's personal belongings were still inside. Her bed appeared to have been slept in. Her work clothes were gone. There were no signs of forced entry, no visible struggle, nothing that suggested a crime had occurred inside the home. Jennifer's car, however, was missing. This detail shifted the focus of the investigation. Law enforcement began to treat the case as a possible abduction rather than a voluntary disappearance. The absence of disturbance combined with the missing vehicle suggested that whatever happened likely occurred outside the condominium, possibly in the parking area, possibly during the short walk between Jennifer's home and her car. This narrow window of time, between Jennifer leaving her condo and failing to arrive at work, would become the most critical period in the case. Yet no witnesses came forward who reported seeing anything unusual that morning. Jennifer had vanished during what should have been an ordinary start to the day. 2 days after Jennifer Kesse was reported missing, a break in the case appeared to emerge. Jennifer's car was located approximately 1 mile from her condominium. It was parked at another residential complex. The vehicle showed no obvious signs of damage. There were no visible indications of a struggle inside. The car had been wiped clean. No usable fingerprints were recovered. This discovery raised immediate concern. Whoever had driven the car had taken steps to remove evidence. Nearby, investigators learned that a security camera overlooked the area where the car had been parked. When the footage was reviewed, a person of interest was seen. The individual exited Jennifer's car and walked away. The footage was captured in broad daylight. The person appeared calm, unhurried. Yet the most striking detail was what could not be seen. Each time the person passed in front of the camera, their face was obscured by a fence post. Frame after frame, the timing aligned perfectly. The individual's identity was never captured clearly. This footage has since become one of the most well-known and frustrating pieces of evidence in modern true crime. Investigators released the footage publicly, hoping someone might recognize the person's clothing, gait, or general appearance. Despite widespread attention, no confirmed identification was made. The person seen on camera has never been named, and their connection to Jennifer Kesse has never been definitively established. The discovery of the car and the surveillance footage shifted the investigation significantly. It suggested Jennifer had encountered someone shortly after leaving her home, someone who was confident enough to drive her car and abandon it in a public place. Yet without a face, the footage offered more questions than answers. Jennifer's disappearance had moved from uncertain to deeply unsettling. Following the discovery of Jennifer Kesse's car, the investigation expanded rapidly. Law enforcement agencies coordinated search efforts across multiple areas. Officers canvassed Jennifer's condominium complex. They spoke with neighbors. They reviewed who had access to the property during the days leading up to her disappearance. At the time, the complex was undergoing renovations. Construction workers were present on site. This detail became an important focus of the investigation. Investigators interviewed workers and examined employment records. They attempted to determine who had been in the area during the early morning hours of January 24th. Search teams also focused on nearby locations. They examined wooded areas. They searched bodies of water. They reviewed vacant buildings. Despite extensive efforts, no trace of Jennifer was found. No personal belongings were recovered. No phone, no purse, no indication of where she had gone after leaving her home. Jennifer's family remained closely involved. They worked alongside investigators. They distributed flyers. They spoke publicly, hoping someone might recognize the person seen in the surveillance footage. As days turned into weeks, the lack of progress became increasingly difficult. There were no confirmed sightings, no reliable tips that led to a breakthrough. The case remained active, but without physical evidence, it became harder to narrow the focus. Investigators continued to analyze the footage. They studied the person's movements. They examined clothing and posture. Yet without a clear image of the face, identification remained out of reach. Jennifer Kesse's disappearance had become a case defined by what was missing: evidence, witnesses, answers. As the investigation into Jennifer Kesse's disappearance continued, several challenges became increasingly apparent. The most significant issue was the lack of physical evidence. Jennifer's condominium showed no signs of forced entry. There were no indications of a struggle. Nothing inside the home pointed clearly to what had happened. The discovery of Jennifer's car offered a lead, but it also raised new problems. The vehicle had been wiped clean. No usable fingerprints were recovered. No DNA evidence was identified that could conclusively link a suspect. The surveillance footage, while compelling, presented its own limitations. The person of interest was captured on camera, but their face was never visible. Each frame was obscured by the timing of the fence posts. Investigators examined the footage repeatedly. They consulted experts. They attempted enhancements. None produced a usable image. As time passed, the investigation faced additional obstacles. Turnover among construction workers at the condominium complex made it difficult to track individuals who had been present during the relevant time period. Records were incomplete. Some workers could not be located. Others had moved on. Jennifer's family later raised concerns about how the case was handled. They questioned whether early opportunities had been missed, whether evidence had been preserved effectively. These concerns eventually led to legal action. Years after Jennifer's disappearance, her family pursued a lawsuit seeking access to the full investigative files. The goal was transparency. They hoped a fresh review might reveal overlooked details. Despite renewed attention, the core facts remained unchanged. Jennifer Kesse was missing. The person seen on camera was unidentified, and no charges were filed. The case had not closed, but it had slowed. Not from lack of concern, but from lack of answers. Over the years, investigators have considered multiple possibilities to explain what may have happened to Jennifer Kesse. Each theory has been examined carefully, and each has remained unproven. One possibility is that Jennifer encountered someone near her condominium on the morning she left for work. The short distance between her home and her car meant there was a narrow window of time in which something could have occurred. This theory has often focused on opportunity. The presence of construction workers in the area meant there were individuals nearby who may not have been familiar to Jennifer. However, no direct evidence has confirmed this scenario. Another possibility is that Jennifer was targeted randomly. Her routine was consistent. Her schedule was predictable. Yet there is no evidence that she had been followed or that she had expressed concern about her safety. Some have suggested that Jennifer may have known the person involved. This idea has been explored through interviews and background checks. Again, no confirmation has emerged. Importantly, law enforcement has stated there is no evidence that Jennifer chose to leave voluntarily. She did not pack belongings. She did not withdraw large amounts of money. There was no indication she intended to disappear. The absence of a clear motive has made the case particularly difficult. Each theory explains part of the evidence, but not all of it. And without physical proof, no single explanation has been established. What remains is a case defined by uncertainty, a brief moment in time, a person captured on camera, and a woman who vanished without leaving answers behind. More than 18 years have passed since Jennifer Kesse disappeared. During that time, her case has remained open. Law enforcement agencies have stated that Jennifer's disappearance is still considered an active investigation. Jennifer's family has continued to push for answers. They have spoken publicly. They have reviewed case materials. They have sought independent analysis in hopes that new perspectives might reveal something overlooked. Over the years, there have been occasional tips. Some have generated brief attention. None have led to a resolution. The person seen in the surveillance footage has never been identified. No arrest has been made. No charges have been filed. Jennifer's disappearance remains unexplained. Her case has come to represent how a crime can occur in a populated area, in daylight, and still leave behind so few answers. A woman with a routine, a car found miles away, a figure captured on camera, visible yet unknown. Until new information emerges, Jennifer Kesse's story remains unfinished. A reminder that even in places filled with people, silence can remain.